you. Good catch. All right, so we are now recording. Yep, and audio is on. All right, so let me share the virtual machine now. There we are. Okay. So if you remember, I have to remind myself also, we were building a website, right? So we're building an MVC model view control website that is database driven. So let's go to the terminal here, and we're going to navigate onto var ww, right? And then I believe it's ITS 362, and then I think test 2. All right, and so now the question is, yeah, I think it's an MVC example, right? That's where we were. Right, so this is where we are building our term project, right? We've created. Oh. That's okay. That's a good, yeah. So go ahead and do that, guys. You have, I'll be recording this video and posting it tonight. So you're seeing the message there. If you guys have time, I encourage you to do it. Thank you, Karen. All right. So as I was saying, don't know what that means. All right, so so we were developing our MVC example, and as I said, the idea is to kind of distribute the information, right? So we had created a CSS. I gave you that CSS already. You should change it obviously for your term project, but it gives us a little bit of structure. We've got the HTML files, which are the views. So if we go in there now. All right, and we take a look at these files. We've got the footer and the header.htm, which we were developing before. We can, basically take a look at these. So we can do footer, right? And we can see the file in there. That's the footer. It really just has the closing div from something we opened before. Then we have the sidebar. Remember, the sidebar is actually where we have our login. So this is really where we're going to work today, right? The sidebar is basically, it's got a PHP structure there, right? And we're checking to see if the user ID has been set. If the user ID has been set in the session variable, it means that you've already logged in. So really what we should display as a link, basically, is the logout page, right? So we're going to need a logout page that kind of redirects when you want to log out and you want to destroy basically that session. Else, we're going to have the login form. So if you're not logged in, this is really where we need to do some work, right? So we will need to find this footer and just kind of implement this part. This form needs to have our text boxes, etc. And then after that, we just have the footer here. So that's just, some kind of a link, contact page maybe, or something like that. That's something that you guys can do on your own, so I'm not going to really do that one. All right, and then, we just have the closing tags here, the closing div, closing body, closing HTML, right? So that's our footer, right? So if we take a look, clear here, and now take a look at the header. Let's actually open it in Nano so it looks a little bit better. That's the header, HTML. All right, and we can see that in the header, we just basically have our link to our styles, Here also, when you guys start adding your jQuery, etc., and other things, you can just, your JavaScript, any JavaScript that you want to have, you can add your links here. Got the body section, right? And then we have a few divs in there that are associated with CSS elements. And then we have here just, you know, the initial heading, and then we have the navigation. So in the menu, basically, we created a simple, in PHP, simple array with links. You can add more links as you need them. And then we created a list, basically, with specific links. And then this is all governed by the CSS that's associated with the nav ID over here. All right. So that's in the header, and then we just start the page and the content. Remember also this, we still need to have in the index page probably, you know, what it is that we're going to display information. That part is going to be very specific to what you're doing in your term project. Okay, so it's not really something, you know, it's got to be specific to everyone, and that's governed in the index page. Remember that, you know, every page is made up of an HTML, an index page, and it's made up of a header.html, an index.php, and a footer.html. All right, so that's that one. Okay, we have two files in there, so we can exit out. Right, so we've looked at CSS, we've looked at HTML. Now we can look at the includes. And in the includes, we just have config inc, right? And if we take a look at that one, config inc PHP. And basically, we just set up a variable called MySQL, which references the MySQL Inc PHP file, where we have the database connection information. Okay. And then we also have the base URL, and it's just localhost. And then other functionality, the redirect function, all of that we'll need to add in here later. Okay. And then now we've looked at the includes. The JS, that's just going to be any JavaScript. I don't believe we have anything in there. We've also have a couple of pages, the MySQL Inc. So we can, before we look at index, let's take a look at that one. Sudo MySQL Inc. You can see here we just have the information related to database user, database password, the host, which is localhost, and the database name that we've created, MVC362DB. All right, so that's, you know, we need to go to PHP MyAdmin to create some users, etc. We'll do that. And then we make a connection with PDO, specify that, you know, we use localhost, DB name is MVC362DB, and then database user and database password. And that's it. So we have the connection string as well. All right. Finally, we can take a look at register. I think this is the file where we left off last week or the last time. So let's do sudo nano register. Right, and you can see here, register page, it's got the includes, so we require it. We can also now require the my database, that it works now, so we've enabled it. Then we put in the HTML header in here, right? Then we need to add the logic related to getting data from the database or writing data to the database. You know, I just had a message here, echo, this is a register page, and then finally the footer as well. Okay, so that's the register page. So that's certainly one that needs work. Okay, and finally, we go back to the index page. So that's sudo nano index. Okay, and if we take a look at this one, again, it's got the config inc the MySQL connection. We've got the header, any logic that we want in the index page. It depends on your project, and then the footer. All right, so that's all of the code that we have so far. Now we can take a look at this. So you should be seeing the browser now. We're going to go to test 2. Test PHP.
It's test2/MVC example.
Test 2, right?
No test_PHP.
No. And then, oh, there it is. MD. There we go. That's what I was looking for. All right, thank you. Okay, so we found our website, and this is the home page, so that, that works. We got to fix this. The register page, okay, we go to the register page, right? So that indicates that. So we need to work on the login form and the register page today. Okay, so now for the register page, we will need the database. So what makes more sense? Let's see. To log in or to create? Let's go for the register page first. So let's take a look at that. Yeah, so let's do the register page. All right, on this one, so what does a register page need to have? What do you guys think? It needs to have some kind of a form, right? It needs to have a form of some kind. So then let's go back to here. Now we're gonna open the register page and start modifying it. Okay. And let's see, what do we need? We have the config inc PHP, and then that sets the variable MySQL. Okay, so we've got that links to the database. Then we have the header, which is already there. That's good. And now we want to have a form, right? So we want to have some kind of a form in here. So I would say probably, let's see. Yeah, so let's close. We're going to put the form here, I guess. Yeah. All right, so let's do this. And now we're going to add another segment over here for the next one. So in here, we're going to start adding the register form. So we can say, and this is just regular HTML. Let's just see how it comes out. So register heading 3. Okay. All right, and now we're going to say form action and then register .php. Oops. Then method Okay, so whenever we call the form, we are actually going to call ourselves, right? So this is similar to the homework, the grade calculator, where you use one single file. You have the register. Whenever you click on this button, it calls itself. Give me a sec, guys. All right. Okay, so we create, for the action, we're going to call register. And then the method is going to be a post method in this case. So we say post. Okay. And then close the form. Oops. Okay. So in here, now remember, you can always make this better, right? You can always make this, you could make this with jQuery, etc. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep it simple. But in this case, this is a register page, so you need some information. Okay, so what information do we need? We need probably, let's add some kind of an input here. Input type equals submit. So we have a submit button. We're going to give this a name. So name equal, let's call it submit button. Okay. And then we can say value, maybe something like add. All right. Then we're going to give this an ID also. Let's call it submit button. All right, and that's it. So that thing is we have a submit button. Okay, then we can also have other information that we're going to collect. So we're going to collect a password, a confirmation password, an email, first name, last name, and then maybe a desired username. Okay, so we add all these parameters in here. So let's say, let's put in maybe a p tag here. Okay, and then a label. So I'm just going to keep it simple. Let's just start with user. Right, so we have label. Let's just say user, just something simple for now. And then now let's add the input. Input type, in this case, text. So type text. and the name is going to be username. Okay, so let's just take a look at this now, this form. Let's see how it's starting to take shape. So I'm going to hit Control X, Y, enter. I'm going to go to the browser, and I'm going to go to home. And then if I go to register now, there it is, right? So we need to make this a little bit better, but there's the username, there's the add button. Okay. We probably now can get rid of this. Okay. Sorry, I'm having some trouble with this computer. I don't know what it's doing. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the register page. All right, and we need to add a few more things in here. So let's add few more. Okay. So that, let's say it's going to be first name, last name, desired username, then email, and then a password and confirm password. So that should be all the parameters. Let's add a break line here also. All right, and also one here, I guess. Like that. All right, so this is going to be first name. First name. This is going to be last name. This is going to be username. This is going to be email. And then we're going to have password and confirm password. Confirm. Password. Plus we already have our submit button. Here I'm going to have, oh, this input, I never finished it. So that's missing. Also, let's add a break line at the end. Okay. All right, so first, the last name, So now this text box is going to be called first name. First underscore name. This one can be called last underscore name. This one was correct, that username. Then the next one is email. So email. And then after that, we're going to call this pass1 and pass2 for the password and confirmation. So pass1, pass2. All right, so now we can just finish this up. Have the break line here, so it looks more presentable. Same thing here. All right. And if you guys see any errors, let me know. So this one also. That. And I think that one was done. All right, so unless you guys see anything wrong with this, I believe all these are set now. So that was, that was just a little bit of work. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and refresh the page. All right, so I'm gonna do Control X, Y, enter. Now we're gonna refresh. All right, so there we go. We got a little error there. So obviously the presentation needs to be a little bit better. Okay. So let's take a look. Error here. So where's that? There's that break line tag.
It might, so under the break tag underneath the register, it might be because you have a space in between the BR and the opening portion of the tag, maybe.
I think so, yeah. Okay. Maybe. Yeah, all right, good catch. All right, so hopefully all of these work, right? Okay, and then we would hit add and something needs to happen. So in that case, what happened was that we sent the data back to this page itself, right? So it went back to this page itself. So now we need to address that. So we go back to the register. That's our form. Okay, at the bottom of the form, notice that all we have is the footer. So we have HTML footer there. So then we should probably get rid of this echo. We don't need that anymore. We can get rid of this. And now, so now what we need to do is we need to have some logic in here in the code that addresses when someone has submitted the form. So to do that, we've already learned how to do it, right? So all we have to do is we can get rid of this actually. And we can say, in the PHP code, we can say if, right? And we need to basically check to see if we have a post method. So we can say if server request method so if server request method equal post, right? Oops. Post, then, you know, for now, let's just print out the values. Let's not do anything more than just print out the values just to make sure that we have that connection going. So we can do, let's say we would get the data, right? So we would save it in $FN for oops, I'll make it lowercase. FN for first name. So FN for first name. So we're going to get that from the post array. So post. And then this is going to be the name that we gave it. So first name. Okay. So we grab that. And then let's just print that out. Let's just echo that out to the screen. And let's see what happens. So we're going to do echo. And we're going to say, so we're going to do echo $FN. Okay. This is just a test to make sure that it works. So now I'm going to do Control X, Y. Okay, I'm going to go to the browser here. And I'm going to refresh, basically. All right. Let's go to home. Go to register. There's our register now. And we're going to submit some, let's say the first name, you know, John. And then the rest doesn't matter. Remember that when you're developing something like these text boxes, you would need to do input validation. All right, so now I'm going to hit add, and there it is, John. Right, so that we know basically now that we can send this data back to the page, and then now all we need is the logic to handle this, because our goal is to insert this into the database. Right, we want to insert this into the database. So then we're going to go back to the terminal. So now we're just going to get rid of this. Oops. And we're going to collect all the variable information. $LN. So post. This will be last name. Last underscore name. Then we also need username. Just say $, $post. Single quote here. We're going to say username. Then we're going to go email. So that's going to be $E. Email. Oh, sorry, post. So this is going to be email. All right, semicolon. And then we really just need one password, but we want to confirm the password. So there's a couple of ways that can be done. For one thing, that could be done in JavaScript, for instance, right? You can always just take, you know, or jQuery or something like that. You can always take those two text boxes, and in jQuery, just check that they match. If they don't match, you kind of just don't let it go through. All right, so but for now, let's just keep it simple. So I'm just going to grab the first one as the password. So $post. And then here, we're going to say pass1. Right? So at this point, we've got our fields. We know that we can send the fields effectively. So now comes the next step of the logic. So what do you guys think? What would be the next step?
Logging it in a database.
Hmm?
Logging those variables into a database.
Right, we would want to write it to the database, but before we write it to the database, we actually want to check that the value doesn't already exist in the database because we don't want to duplicate it, right? So that should be the first step to do. Now, this is where this gets more complicated because we don't want to, this is an opportunity for a SQL injection, okay? SQL injection, that's a bad thing for your database. So we have to think about this. So my recommendation, create stored procedures and everything like that. Here, we should actually also do a prepared statement. Okay, prepared statement, which we will see in another lecture. But for now, I just want to, this is only for test, okay? So we need to rewrite this, given that this is only for test. You know, we would write it as the query. However, we should probably do this correctly with a prepared statement. So let me bring that up. Okay, so usually for a prepared statement, you need to create something like this. You do $sign, you know, something like the statement or the SQL query. And then this will be, now here, we're using PDO. So what was, so we called it, what was the name of it? Do you guys remember? $DB, I think it was. Hold on. So to figure this out, we have to go to MySQL. MySQL. All right. So our connection is actually called $DB DBH. Remember that whenever we call the file, we basically are bringing that code in. So then $DBH, remember that. So then in here should be $DBH, just like that. And then we're going to call the prepare statement, prepare. And the prepare statement allows us to do a couple of things. Right, so let's try it like this. Prepare, and then we're going to say in here the query that we want. So usually you would write in here the command, so insert or whatever it is. But in our case, we want to do the select, right? So we're going to do select. What do we need? Let's just say email. That's going to, now remember, these are going to be the database column names, email and username from, and then obviously we need to create the table. I'm going to call it users, where, and then let me just write this down here for now. Where email, and then we're going to say where email equal question mark. I think PDO does it a little bit different, so we'll take a look at that in a sec, but this is just how you do it with MySQL I. So we're going to say where email, select all, we just want to check if that email or that user exists, right? So then we're going to say select email user from users where email equals something, or I guess, or username equal something else, okay? So the question marks are just like placeholders so that you can later plug in the values. So what you do is you will bind the parameters later. Now, so with PDO, it's a little bit different. So apparently with PDO, you don't use question marks, but you would use the colon, right? So you do this, colon, and then you say first name, well, not first name, email, or username, okay, just like that. The next step is then you need to do something called binding the parameters. And what that means is that now you pass the variables on here. So I'm going to do statement bind param. And then here you would say, well, I'm going to bind colon email, colon email, which is sort of a string. We're going to bind this to the actual variable now, $email. Okay? Yeah. And this is a prepared statement in the sense that by doing this, this is the code, the bind params are the data. And so there's no possibility for any SQL injection, because even if an attacker inserted a SQL statement here, the SQL statement would never be treated as a part of the initial query. It would always be treated as as data and not code. And that's the problem if you take the other approach that we'll take a look at in a second. That one gives you the opportunity for a SQL injection. All right, so now I just need to bind the other parameter.
Shouldn't that be $E?
Yes, actually, yes. Good catch. $. And then this one is statement. And this should be bind param. And again, this is username, right? So username, comma. And that was a U. Yes, good catch. All right, perfect. So now we have hopefully the parameters set up. The last part of this is to execute the statement. So you would do something like statement execute. Okay, so that would be down here. Statement. Obviously, we need to create the database. We don't have that created yet. But statement execute right there. So that's a prepared statement. Now the other alternative, now that I've kind of gone over the prepared statement, is, let me just add, this is the secure way, right? So this is via prepared statement. And then I'll say here, the other alternative, which you should not use, this is insecure. You can use it for testing, etc., but you should not leave it in there. And that would be, the common, you do like Q, and then select, same thing, right? Email and username from users where, and then here's the problem. So the problem would be here where you do email equal in single quotes. So actually, yeah, in single quotes, $E. This is not recommended that you do that. Okay? Or username. Let me just move this down a little bit. Username equal single quote $U. Okay? So this statement is insecure. It'll work, but it's not something that you should have in your database, right? Instead, you should use a secure approach like via prepared statement, like this. Okay, guys? Which the prepared statement is a mechanism, again, that separates code from data. Okay? Any questions about that?
I don't think so.
All right, no questions. Very good. Okay, so now, so let's take a look. All right, so what else do we need? Let's leave both techniques in there actually, just so that we can view them for now. So for this one, okay. So we created we have a query, and now we're going to run it. So with the first one, with PDO, right, like we saw in the labs, we have our queue there. And now we can do $DBH query, right? Was it query? Semicolon. And then in here, we can do the actual statement, so $Q. Okay? All right, so now we need to start thinking about having a database so we can try out these connections. So we can say, so I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to the database now. We have to go to the browser, PHP MyAdmin. Okay, and this is our database, I believe. Okay. No tables. Did we not create any tables on this? I guess it's possible we never did. All right, so if we didn't, I thought we had created some tables, but if we haven't,
We did, but it was lecture 362 DB.
oh, but this was just for an example, right? Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
for the project, NBC project, I believe this.
Professor,
Yeah, go ahead.
you have a lot of reverb on your voice,
My voice is.
on your microphone.
Yeah, there's something wrong going on with my computer right now. It's really distracting me because I don't know what something. CPU is running and something to do with the audio. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you sound much better.
Yep.
Yeah, that's better.
I don't know. So hopefully that fixed the problem. Checking the settings here. Okay. All right, so let's continue. Okay, so we were here. You should be seeing the PHP MyAdmin now. And we need to create a table, right? So in this case, let's see, we need a users table. Okay. So let's think about what we need. We need a table called users. It'll have a unique ID. It'll have type of user probably. It'll have username, email, the password, first name, last name. We could have more things, of course, but let's just try that. All right, so I'm going to go to the query here, and I'm going to do create table. And then we're going to call it users. Okay, open parentheses. And then let's close parentheses down here. So let's see, what do we need? We need an ID. Okay, int unsigned, not null, auto increment. Okay, so I'm only going to put in like the basic parameters. I'm sure you guys can figure out the rest later. I really just want to make, right now, my only goal is to make that connection, okay, to make the database connection. So I've got the ID. I'm even going to avoid the type because I don't have type in the form. And instead, I'm just going to keep the basic things I need. So username is fine. Username. Oh, these are wrong. Username, varchar. It's going to be of size, let's say 30. Not null. Not null. So username, email. Email. This one can be varchar, a little bit bigger. Let's say 80. Also not null. And then we need obviously the password. We're not going to hash it just yet. Okay. So we're just going to send it in plain text initially. Oh, so, yeah, sorry, not hash. Password is fine. Pass is fine. All right, this will be, this could be var. This should be binary when you hash it. Okay, so var. So that's the data type, var binary. Okay, because it's going to be, binary 32. And then it can be null. So default null. And then what else? And the last two things I'm going to add in here are the first name and the last name. And we can modify this later. So this is going to be first name, varchar 20. And not null. And finally, last name. Varchar 40, let's say. First name, last name, and then not null as well. Okay. So now let's just indicate what's going to be a primary key. So we can do primary key, and it's going to be the ID. Primary key ID. And then we want unique keys to be the username. Actually, let's just leave it like that. All right, so primary key is ID. Okay. Primary key is ID. Actually, let's make the email unique key just to make sure. Unique key is going to be email. All right, so now that should be the last one for now. Okay, and then here, let's see. What I have here is char set UTF. The default char set equal UTF-8 semicolon. All right, so hopefully that's all of it. So let's try it. Go. Okay, so I don't see any issues. Now if we click on this, click on right, there's our table. Okay. Now we don't have any data in here. Not sure why it's giving me that error. All right, so what is this error?
That error pops up for me all the time, but it still works. It's like some kind of version issue, I think, from last time I looked at it. Oh,
All right, I'll take a look at it later. All right, so now we have this. Let's just add. So our goal here then is to insert some data into these. Let's go into insert. Right, so we've got ID, username, email, password, first name, and last name. Right, so we're going to try to populate this now. So let's go, actually, let's do it from here. All right. So let's see. The first thing we want to try is we now have this one, right? So we have the first query. We're going to enter something. So this one just queries the database for that particular one. It'll probably return 0 records. Then we do this one. This is also a select, right? And we just want to query this one as well, make sure everything runs. And then I'm going to put an echo here. Right? So I'm going to put an echo. And it basically just to confirm that everything ran correctly. Something like it runs. All right, otherwise, if it doesn't run, there will be some kind of an issue. So let's say PDO runs. And then over here, let's say, no, sorry, that's actually not correct. It should say prepared statement runs. The prepared statement runs, and then here also echo. Let's just say, I guess no prepared statement runs. Okay, this is just to make sure that these actually run and don't give us an error. So let's go ahead, save it. All right, now let's go to the browser. Let's go back to the website. Okay, we're in the home page. Now we want to go to the register page. Okay, we need to enter a value here. So John. Smith, and then the other ones can just be whatever for now. Okay. All right, so now we're going to try this. Add. Okay, all right, so that's a good sign, right, guys? So if there had been a problem, one of those wouldn't have run, but actually they all ran. So then that's a good thing. Now we can go back to the code. Now the next thing we want to do is, once we have this, we run now let's try the insert. And we're just going to try it down here, basically. So in this case, we're going to do another statement, $sign statement. $sign DVH. DVH. Prepare. Okay. Prepare statement again. But this time around, it's a little bit more complex because we have to provide more data. So we're going to say insert into users. And then we specify the fields followed by the values. Like that. That's how it should work. And at the semicolon at the end. So I believe that's correct. So then let's just insert a couple of things. We need, let's just do first name, last name, email. Let's just do that. First name. And then let's move this down a bit. First name, last name. I think that's how we called it in the database. Email. And then the values are going to be. And then once again, this is where we need to do the colon and then the prepared statement values. So it's going to be first name, colon, last name, colon, email. Okay, we do that, and then okay, so now here we need to bind the parameters. So we do $ statement, like that, bind param. Remember, this is to help with SQL injection. So then we're going to type here colon first name, and this will be FN, right? Is that FN? Do the same for the other statement. Bind param colon last name $ln, and then finally email. So bind param colon email. And I think it was E. All right. Oops. So do that. And then finally, we would, we have the values, and now we just have to execute, right? So I'm going to do statement.execute. Execute. All right, let's add another echo in here. Echo. And then let's say insert it and see if that works. All right, so we'll have to test this, but I believe it's, unless you guys see any errors, hopefully that'll work. So let's save it. Control X, Y, enter. Go back to the home. Okay, go to register. And here we're going to add, let's now do John Smith, J. Smith, email, J. Smith at w.edu. Password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Confirm 1, 2, 3. All right, so now, moment of truth. Add. Inserted, it says. Huh. But did it work? So now we're going to go to this here. That is getting annoying. So there's nothing, right? Didn't insert. So I think it might be that it's possible it just needs all the information because we made these not null. What do you guys think?
That is true. Forgot that it was set to not null.
Yeah, so let's try that again. Let me go here. All right. And if not, that'll be your homework, right? Just to get this to work, but let's try that. So in my rush, I wanted to avoid some things, but let's see. All right, so we need to insert first name, last name, email. What else? Password, was it? Okay, I have it here. So let's see. We created the ID should be automatic. Username, it's not there. First name, last name, email, username. Email is there. Password is there. First name and last name. So I think that's all of them. So then just down here, let's do the same. Let's add these. First name, last name, email. Pass. Username. I think that's correct. And then here we need to add those two. Statement. Bind param. Colon. Pass. Dollar sign P, I think. Statement. Bind param. Username. And we bind it to you. All right. So that's all of them. Let me also do this. All right, let's try it again. So I'm gonna try this. John Smith. Oops. John Smith. J. Smith. J. Smith. W. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right. All right. This is so annoying. I need to work on that. And then, should be some data in here.
When I made the changes, it worked,
It
at
works?
least. Yeah.
Huh. Well, it's good that it worked for you.
I'm not sure, but order might matter in the insert statement. It might have to go in the specific order of username, email, password, first and last name.
The order doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't?
Worked for me just
Oh.
It
now
worked for
as
you
well.
as well?
Yeah.
So maybe I just have a typo. Don't have. Let's see. I'm glad it's working for you at least. So let's see. FNLNUEP. And then first name, last name, username, email, password. So then this one, I'm just going to comment this out. I don't have to. All right, I don't need that. Get rid of this. So just remember, I just wrote this kind of to indicate don't do this. Okay, it's because of a SQL injection. When you take 450, we'll do labs about it. Just don't do that. And then here, select email username from users or email. That's correct. Let's see down here. Insert into users, first name, last name, email, pass, username. For values is first name, last name, email.
I think I see. I think
Yeah,
I see
then
it.
you have an extra comma.
Yeah.
Where?
After username, before values.
Oh, yeah. You mean this one? That one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then first name, last name, email, password, and username, right? So this looks correct. All right, let's try it. Okay. Smith, Smith. One, two, three, four, five. Okay. All right. Oh, there it is. You guys see it?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So yeah, so we can see here, J Smith at PNW 12345. John Smith was in fact inserted. All right, so that's a little bit of progress. So obviously we need to do this a little bit better, but at least now we can make the connection, right? So we can make the connection. That's the first thing we needed to
You're not wrong.
address. You guys have a question? No? All right, so now what do we need for this to actually work properly? So we have our form here. Maybe, the presentation of it needs to improve a little. And then we have, this statement here needs to check, right? So we need to have some kind of an if statement that checks if it exists. If it already exists, then it should say something like, it already exists. If not, then you insert into the database, right? Like so, with all the parameters. We also need to make that this password, that this P needs to be a hash of it. So we'll need a function for that. And what else? That should be it, right? So that will just allow us to create accounts. Now, if you were to do this like in real life, you have to beware of like robots, right? Those robots that they have on the web, because otherwise they'll just create fake accounts on yours. So you always need to have some kind of control. That's why you have those CAPTCHAs, right? Now, I'm not gonna make it required that you have CAPTCHAs or anything like that, but just be aware that's what they're for. And sometimes even like somebody approves in the system in the database, if you're gonna let it, because otherwise you just don't know what people are gonna put in there, right? You wanna have a little bit of control. All right, so are there any questions at this time, guys? Any questions?
Not about this, but I do have one about the homework.
Let me actually stop the recording at this time. All right, we'll stop. This is a good stopping point for the lecture. We'll just continue this. Sorry, Dakota. So let me just finish. So we'll finish this. Register page is now, I think, in good shape. So we will just finish it up on Thursday. And then then we have to do the login. Okay, so the login is just very similar to this, right? We have a little form, put in your, we're going to use email or something and password, log in, and then you go from there. You're going to need to save a variable in the session that says that you're logged in, maybe what type of user you are. Okay, but we'll finish it up hopefully on Thursday. All right, so let me go ahead now and just pause the